What's up, guys? It's Wally, and today we're going to be talking about another different Tera type Pokemon that we encountered and how to make it competitive. This time we're going to be talking about a Ghost Tera Garganacl, which is something that's actually made its way onto some teams. So we'll get into the video, but before we do, as always, if you guys are new here, just haven't yet, please make sure to go down and hit the subscribe button. If you guys do enjoy the video, please make sure to drop a like too. Since Garganacl is running at about a 6 to 7% usage right now, I'm sure some of you guys know all the ins and outs of this Pokemon, but I think it is going to be important to still go over the strengths and the weaknesses of its typing and its Tera typing. Normally, Garganacl is a bulky rock-type Pokemon, which comes with 5 weaknesses and 4 resistances. And the weaknesses are to some pretty common typings too, like water, grass, fighting, ground, and steel. But the natural bulk and ability to be able to cause some damage over time really makes this an incredible Pokemon. The resistances aren't that bad either, as they're at a normal fire, poison, and flying. And since there is going to be a bit of an uptick in Sun teams in Series 2 in order to activate photosynthesis, and also considering the sheer amount of Tailwind setters that are flying types, you're going to end up with some pretty good matchups. Offensively, Garganacl's rock-type moves hit 4 types for super effective damage: fire, ice, flying, and bug. Now, there are 3 types that do resist it, which are fighting, ground, and steel. And unfortunately, those are 3 of your defensive weaknesses as well. But thankfully, there is a move that Garganacl gets that does allow it to hit water and steel types for 1/4 residual damage every single turn, which does kind of help you out with the steel department there. So even though you would have a rock type move that wouldn't necessarily be effective against steel types, at least the residual damage that you would have over those steel types would really make it worth it to use it. We will end up talking more about that move when we do get into the build, but that'll come in just a couple minutes. After terastallizing, we will have the benefit of turning one of our weaknesses into an immunity and turning our other 2 weaknesses into neutral hits. Plus, you do get to end up with 2 new resistances, which are to poison and bug, as well as 2 immunities, which are to normal, and as we just talked about, to fighting as well. You also do only end up with 2 weaknesses as well, which are to ghost and to dark. However, as you can see, the ability on this Garganacl right here, which is called Purifying Salt, it does allow ghost-type moves to only do half damage to Garganacl. So what would end up being a super effective move to any other ghost-type Pokemon would only end up hitting for neutral damage because of the ability that Garganacl has. So really, you only end up with 1 weakness, which is to dark. And again, with Garganacl's bulk, only having 1 type that's super effective against you means that you're going to be out there for quite some time. Offensively, Ghost-type moves hit 2 types for super effective damage, which are Psychic and Ghost, and there's only 1 type that resists it, which is Dark. And of course there is the 1 immunity that Normal has to Ghost, but that's normal. And while that's great and all, and it gives Ghost types really good utility, that's really not going to matter much for this Garganacl. And not that Garganacl isn't going to take advantage of its Ghost type from an offensive standpoint, it's just that it's going to do so in a different way through a move called Curse. But before I get way too far into that, let's start to get into this build for our Ghost Garganacl. Now, before we actually get into the build that we actually built for this Garganacl, I just kind of want to look at its stats, kind of look at its move pool and everything like that as well, just to kind of see what we're working with. So obviously, like I said, Garganacl is a really bulky Pokemon. I mean, its HP stat is at 100, the defense stat at 130, which really makes it great for one of the moves in its move pool called Body Press. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, though. And then its special defense is 90. And while obviously that doesn't necessarily compare to the 130, 90 is still pretty bulky. And again, with a 100 HP stat, it's still pretty good too. The 2 stats that obviously aren't really that great here are the speed and the special attack. Now, the good thing here is the fact that nothing that we use with Garganacl is going to be a special attack, so that's something that we can just kind of take off the table right away. And then from a speed standpoint as well, I mean, 35 really isn't that great, so even if we ended up maxing out the speed, there really isn't going to be much that we're going to be able to outspeed anyways, so we really don't have to put any investment in speed. But 2 things that we don't necessarily need for Garganacl. So before we actually go into the move pool, I just kind of want to look at the abilities as well. So the 2 abilities that it has is just like the normal abilities, not the hidden one, are Purifying Salt and Sturdy. Now, Sturdy is one that I know that we've seen before. There are a good amount of Pokemon that actually have it. But it's great because if you are at full HP, you're basically going to survive no matter what at 1 HP. So essentially, it really is just kind of like a focus sash in a way, but one that's just kind of an ability. So that's always nice to have. But again, Garganacl with the bulk that it has, we're not really going to have to worry about that too much. Are there a couple moves that are out there that might be able to OHKO Garganacl? Yeah, maybe. But is that something that we have to really worry about right now? Well, let's hope not. But the other one, of course, is called Purifying Salt, which is the one that I think that we're going to end up having on it. Basically, what it does, like I said, when I was talking about the ghost types and the weaknesses, is that this ability halves the offense stat from ghost type damage. And that's really nice because, again, if we do Tera into the ghost type, that will end up becoming a weakness, but because it ends up having the stat, it ends up becoming neutral damage. So you're really not going to have a weakness other than to dark. But the other good thing here, too, is the fact that it can't be statused. So if they think that they're going to put us to sleep, or if they think that they're going to paralyze us or burn us or anything like that, that's just not going to happen. Garganacl can't have that happen to it. And again, not that, with the burn that's going to really affect our attack, because it's not what we're really going to be known for here with this Garganacl. But still, being able to not take residual damage, even though we probably will have something like leftovers on it, I think that's going to be pretty important. So having that ability on there for both of those reasons, I think is going to be probably the best thing that you can have out there. And of course, its hidden ability is Clear Body. And again, this is I don't want to say an old ability per se, but one from a previous generation. But it prevents other Pokemon from lowering your stats. And again, Garganacl, as long as you're not lowering your defense or special defense or anything like that, Garganacl would be fine anyways, but really, realistically, having Purifying Salt on there is probably the best ability to have on Garganacl. So starting to look at the move pool, needless to say, there is a lot of rock moves on here. And obviously, that makes sense. It's a rock-type Pokemon. But of course, as with like a lot of other rock-type Pokemon, there are some ground moves on there as well as some steel, some fighting, and things like that. It does have access to a couple punch moves. Obviously, you see Fire Punch here, you see Ice Punch, as well as, Thunder Punch down there as well. But don't worry, again, those aren't any of the moves that we're going to end up using here. The other great thing about Garganacl as well, and I've talked about this in other videos as well as on stream all the time as well, it gets a very, very underrated move that I love a lot, and it's called Wide Guard. And I just realized that is off the screen, but here, let me put that up there so you can see it there. But pretty much what it does is it protects you and your ally from getting hit by like multi-target moves. So say it's something like an Earthquake or Icy Wind, or heck, even something like Dragon Darts. That's going to protect you and your allies. So that'll protect you from something strong, like even something like an Eruption too. Not that Garganacl is going to worry that much about it, but Torkoal in the sun with sometimes the Fire Tera, like that's still going to do a lot of damage. So that's something you kind of have to worry about. So having something like Wide Guard is really nice. And that's something that we could end up having on Garganacl, but I think on the one that we ended up building, we're going to end up putting Protect on it. I'll explain that a little bit more down the road, but the fact that Garganacl does have access to Wide Guard, I absolutely love that. I think more Pokemon should have access to that, but obviously it's got to make sense too. But a couple of the other moves that it gets, it's really cool that it gets an Ice-type move in Avalanche. Obviously it did an Ice Punch as well. It does get Body Press, which is another move that I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. And this is great because what this does, and which is why I said we don't really have to invest anything into the attack stat, is because with Body Press, it actually takes your defense stat into the attack damage calculation. So it doesn't matter what your attack stat is, as long as your defense stat is high, that's going to do a ton of damage. So if we were running like a Body Press set like that, we would end up pretty much maxing out the defense, and we would also put a move, like Iron Defense on it. So what Iron Defense does is basically raise your defense stat by 2 stages. And so if we do have something like Body Press, which takes the defense stat into calculation, being able to raise your defense like that is only going to make that move hit harder. So a lot of people do end up setting up with, an Iron Defense or 2, or even some of the greedy people end up going with 3. But they end up doing that and then going with Body Press, which is a great strategy unless you end up running into, obviously some Ghost-type Pokemon, which isn't going to do a lot of damage. But even Pokemon that is going to do not very effective damage into, it's still going to hit pretty hard with the attack stat, which wouldn't be an attack stat because it would be a defense stat. And with obviously the power of the move as well, it would do a lot of damage. So that's obviously another build that I know a lot of people end up using. But it also does have this one move that I kind of alluded to earlier as well, and it's called Salt Cure. And basically what this does is it's a 40 power move, which obviously is not that strong. 40 power, let's be honest, that's not strong. That's basically like a quick attack. However, the great thing is that this deals residual damage. And for all Pokemon, it's going to do an eighth of your max HP every single turn. However, the really good thing is that if it's a Steel or a Water-type Pokemon, which are two Pokemon that end up doing good damage against Garganacl, and of course the Steel-type, which does resist the Rock-type as well, it's nice to be able to get some extra damage on those two types, especially with a move like Salt Cure, which is a Rock-type move, which wouldn't do that much damage anyways. Being able to knock them out in 4 turns unless they end up switching out is a really big benefit. You do get other stab moves too, like Rock Slide, which is one that I know a lot of people like to use. I like to use it myself too, despite the fact that it is a 90% accurate move, which, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced in this game, sometimes it feels like that 90% really only stands for 50%. So, you know, I know that can be a little sketchy at times, but still, I think it's another good move to use if you end up wanting to invest a lot in the attack. So being able to have like a spread move like that ends up doing a good amount of damage, and especially for Pokemon like Garganacl with a 100 attack base stat, I think that'd be a really good move to have on it as well. But again, the one that we're going to end up building isn't going to be investing anything into attacks, so having the Rock Slide isn't going to help much. But the fact that we are a Ghost-type Pokemon, or will end up turning into a Ghost-type Pokemon, does mean that we can take advantage of Curse. And this is one that we're going to kind of go over as well. And in fact, we can actually go over this as we look at our final built Pokemon too. So I ended up kind of, before going over this video, ended up building Garganacl to the set of what I think I would want it to be, including EVs and all. So to get into that one here, obviously, as you can tell, looks the exact same as the other one, except this one actually has moves, an item, and EVs, and everything like that. But either way, you see that we do have Salt Cure, Recover, Protect, and Curse. So Protect, again, I thought that maybe you could put Wide Guard on there, but since Garganacl is a Pokemon that might be, you know, the last one out there, and especially if you end up running like a stall team or something like that, which I'm not one to end up running stall teams myself. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but that's only because I don't know really how to use them well. So if you are like a stall team user, I think this is your Pokemon right here. It's just that I'm not typically good with them, so that's why I don't typically end up using them. But either way, since it is going to be more of like a Stallmon and one that is going to do residual damage over time, I think having Protect over Wide Guard is going to be a lot more important. And then, of course, like I said, the last one being Curse. So the good thing about Curse is, even if we're not a Ghost type, we can still end up using this move too. It's just going to do a completely different thing. So basically, if you're not a Ghost type Pokemon, what it's going to do is it's going to lower your speed by 1 stage, which with Garganacl, it's not a fast Pokemon, so lowering its speed really isn't going to do too much. But also, you're going to get a boost in attack and defense. And again, it being a pretty high attack stat at 100, even if you don't invest much in it, you know, it's still going to make a pretty big difference, and it's still going to hit pretty hard. And then, of course, the defense as well. Anytime you're able to beef up your defense, it's still really good too. And especially if you do end up having like, like Body Press or something like that, that could always help out too. But of course, this isn't one of those mons, but if you do end up wanting to change one of these moves and you do want to put Body Press, that wouldn't be a bad move to put on there too. But if you are a Ghost type Pokemon, what it does is it ends up cursing the mon that you end up choosing. So what that does is, like with Garganacl, it would cut its HP in half, which obviously isn't desirable, but what it does is it puts the curse on the Pokemon, and it's going to remove 1/4 of its max HP every single turn. So, say for instance you are able to terrestrialize your Garganacl into a Ghost type, and you end up getting a Salt Cure and a curse on the Pokemon. That Pokemon's going to be pretty much gone in 2 turns. I mean, you're going to get the Salt Cure on the first one, and if it is a Water or a Steel type Pokemon, yeah, they're going to go out even quicker. But with the Salt Cure, you're going to be able to get that 1/8 residual damage, and then with the Curse, you do 1/4 damage. So if it's not a Steel or a Water type Pokemon, that's essentially going to even out to be 3/8 damage every single turn that both of those are active, and that's going to take a lot. So yeah, you're going to do a lot of damage. And that's not even taking into consideration the damage that you're going to do with the actual Salt Cure too. And obviously it's not going to be a lot, but that's still going to take enough out of there that it might be able to take off like a turn, maybe, if you end up getting enough damage on it, if you add in the residual damage too. So being able to have that and being able to have both of those active, I think would be a really, really cool tech. And especially since you have the Ghost Tera type, that's not out of the realm of possibility. So I think that's a really cool tech that you can end up employing right there. And then having something like Recover is going to allow you to recover half of your HP right there. But of course, having Protect means that you can protect, and then having Leftovers is going to cure a little bit of your HP every single turn. So if you were able to protect and get that little bit of HP boost every single turn, that is going to make it so that Garganacl can last out there for an extra turn. And if you are getting residual damage on your ally or even both of your allies' Pokemon, they're taking extra damage while you're just healing up. So you're going to be out there for quite some time while they're going to be struggling to find a way to kind of defeat your Garganacl. And especially since you will really only have one weakness, which is to Dark, they're going to have a hard time trying to figure out how to take care of you. And again, the fact that you can't get statused because of the Purifying Salt means that you're not going to be taking any poison damage, any burn damage, or anything like that that's going to make it so that you're not going to be able to get a Protect off with, if you end up getting paralyzed or something like that. Something that's going to really make it so that you can't really heal all the way up to where you need to be. That's a really big benefit. A lot of Pokemon end up taking a lot of damage from statuses, but the fact that Garganacl isn't going to have that problem makes it a really great Pokemon, especially if you're going to use it as a Stallmon too. So again, while I'm not a person or a Pokemon trainer that usually employs like a stall strategy, I think this Garganacl would be a really, really great one. Again, with Purifying Salt making it so that the ghost weakness that it would have after terastallizing would essentially go to neutral damage, making it so that it really only has one weakness, means that you're not going to be taking a ton of damage. Plus you have Purifying Salt, which means that, again, you're not going to be getting any statuses as well, so you're not going to be losing any damage from that, which means that you're always going to get the benefit from Leftovers, unless, of course, you end up getting knocked off. But, that's a little different. That's something that you can't necessarily plan for off the bat, so just assume that you're always going to have the Leftovers. But that, plus the Salt Cure, plus the Curse and all the residual damage that comes with that, and the ability to recover and recover half of your HP, and then Protect to be able to get max effectiveness out of those Leftovers, means that Garganacl is going to be really, really hard to take down. So if you are a really big fan of stall teams, or you want to see a Pokemon in this generation that could potentially 1v4 an entire team, I think this Garganacl might be the one to be able to do it. Now, as it pertains to the EVs, like I said, it's a really bulky Pokemon, so we really wanted to put 252 of the EVs into the HP. We really wanted to get that up as high as possible. And with that full investment, it gets it all the way up to 207. And then for the rest of the EVs, like I said before, we're not really relying on an actual attack stat here with this Garganacl. We're really relying on residual damage with Curse and Salt Cure, so really we don't have to put any of the EVs into attack. Now, we are going to put them, obviously, into defense and special defense because the special attack and the speed really don't matter at all. So we're really going to divide it up here. Obviously, we're not using body press or anything, so, maxing out in defense isn't really the play for us. So since really our biggest weakness is going to be Dark when we end up terastallizing, that's something that, you have Hydreigon, sometimes you have like Tyranitar and all that, so, special attack, physical attack, you don't know exactly which one you're going to see. So, we kind of want to even it out as much as possible. So if we end up putting 20 in defense and then 236 in special defense with the Careful Nature, which does, give it a plus nature in the special defense and a -1 in the special attack, because again, special attack doesn't matter. That pretty much makes it so that defense and special defense are pretty much at the same level. That puts defense at 153 and special defense at 154. So having those even right there pretty much means you're covered for whatever you end up seeing. So being able to, again, max out your bulk and be able to kind of have them even in defense and special defense really kind of makes Garganacl a really big tank right here. And again, when you really just rely on the residual damage, that's going to be going down by, at the very least, an 1/8 every single turn with Salt Cure, and you're going to need to be out there as long as possible. So that's our build, and I know a lot of you guys are running Ghost Garganacl right now, so you guys let me know down in the comments, what do you like about this one, what would you guys change, or anything like that. So thank you guys so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to drop a like, and we'll see you guys next time.